Welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast, where today's thought leaders discuss how they're using the latest social media strategies and technologies in marketing, sales, customer service, and HR. Get ready to be inspired as our guests contribute to your digital transformation through their stories, knowledge, and insights into what works in today's digitally connected world. And now, here's Bernie Borges, your host of the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey there, welcome to episode 210. This is Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso and host of the Social Business Engine podcast. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, my guest on this episode is Andrew Malcolm, Chief Marketing Officer at Evernote. Andrew reveals how he and his team at Evernote are using artificial intelligence marketing technology to do marketing at scale and also making it personal and meaningful to each user. Andrew discusses how Evernote has evolved into a technology-driven marketing organization, and he guides you on how best practices can be applied in your organization. Now, before we transition to my conversation with Andrew Malcolm, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Frost & Sullivan. Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the 19th Annual Marketing Executive Mind Exchange event, Marketing Impact 2025. We'll be moderating a think tank discussion that's focused on creating a consistent omnichannel customer journey. Join us at the Marketing Impact 2025 event, July 16th through the 18th, 2018, in Nashville, Tennessee, where you can mix and mingle with forward-thinking marketing executives and thought leaders. Now, as an event partner, we are excited to extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. Just go to frost.com/MAR, M-A-R, and use discount code Vengreso at registration. Now, don't worry, we will link that up in our show notes page at vengreso.com/podcasts. Just go there and hit on episode 210 and you'll find it right there. All right, now let's get to my conversation with Andrew Malcolm, Chief Marketing Officer at Evernote. Andrew, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
It's great to be here, Bernie. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, let's begin with an introduction to your company, Evernote. It's a very well-known company, but I always like to begin with the basics. Who is Evernote and your role at the company?
You bet. So at Evernote, we like to think of ourselves as the easiest way to turn your ideas into actions by helping people manage the deluge of data that's coming at us every day. So we think our purpose is to let people focus on what matters most to them. That means that we build a series of mobile apps and a series of content that helps people navigate through the inundation of things that we're suffering from every moment. This includes like the flagship app that most people know us for, but it also includes some other aspects as well as things like Scannable and Skitch and our full suite of products and services.
I did not know about the products and services. And so what is your role at the company specifically, Andrew?
So my title's Chief Marketing Officer, but I think that probably means something a little bit different in companies like ours, where you've got 225 million users in every country on the planet and a marketing budget that equates to something more like 2 cents per user per year.
2 cents per user per year. And you said 225 million users in every country. So I don't know that I can do the math. Are you saying that we have to sum up all those countries for the total number of users?
Oh, no, 225 million users across every country.
Gotcha. Okay. And your marketing budget is 2 cents per user. Okay. So how do you do personalized marketing, which we all need to do as marketers? We want to reach our audience in a personal way. How can you possibly do that to 225 million users at 2 cents per user?
Yeah, this is where we think of a completely different type of marketing these days that we call creatively analytic. And that means that we're trying to marry all of the power of big data and machine learning and AI with really compelling content that we deliver at just the right time, in just the right channel, to just the right people. And that's what marketers have always tried to do. But now we're doing it in a different way that allows us to use technology to actually make that message personalized to every individual. There's almost this paradox that emerges out of that the best way to deliver the most personal marketing is to have a machine do it. And we do this by investigating all of the different ways that we could actually tell somebody about a product like Evernote. Now, if you think Evernote has somewhere around 20 to 30 different features, how do you introduce somebody to the right feature at the the right time for what they're trying to accomplish. Well, that's where the power of machines is way better than the power of a human in trying to trigger those messages to make that something that is truly unique to that individual.
Interesting. So we've talked a lot about AI and machine learning on this podcast in the past, and there is this ongoing perception out there that machine learning can make marketing more scalable. And in your case, you're reaching 225 million users. There's a paradox there of the personalization aspect. So can you unpack that a little bit, Andrew, in terms of how do you personalize the content? You mentioned that it's delivered at the right time and at the right channel. How are you personalizing the content?
Sure. I think the content is probably the last step in the journey toward a truly automated AI-based marketing strategy. So whether you know it or not, you've actually been part of AI from the very beginning, right? The recommendations in Amazon, the way that Google organizes your search results based on what you've done previously, all of those are examples of machine learning and AI. For marketers, the first thing that we can all do is figure out what type of message we should deliver and let machines do that first and foremost, right? So if we have somewhere around, 60 million people creating a note at any time, then how can we actually tell them about the right feature for each of them? If you ask the human brain to calculate what is the best one, the best message to deliver, that's virtually impossible, right? Even with the most advanced statistical tools, a human can't write those algorithms. On the other hand, that is the perfect thing to ask a machine to do, is to say what type of message seems best for this user based on the type of device they're using. Where are they in their time of day? Are they likely at work or are they likely at home? Where are they geographically? What is the type of content that they might be interacting with? And if you know those pieces, then a machine can very quickly synthesize each of that to say, the probability suggests that this type of message would be most effective at this moment. Now, how you get from that realization to actually delivering a message is yet another adventure in actually taking the content and making it real. You have to have giant repositories at that point that you can go in and pull out those messages. And those you still have to build with the creativity that humans have. It's very hard to develop that purely from a machine basis.
So on the topic of those giant repositories of content, what does that look like? I have this picture in my head, Andrew, of 20 people in a room creating content. Is that your scenario at Evernote, or is it just the opposite? Is it something, completely different?
Well, I don't think anybody has exactly cracked the code on how to create that much content at scale. What you can do is realize that content is made up of a series of components. And if you modularize your content, then it's a matter of putting those different components together, whether that's through a content management system or another tool that allows you to create multiple pieces of content from only a few components themselves by just simply having different combinations. So lots of companies will talk about how they have hundreds or even thousands of different homepages. In reality, those are just combinations of maybe 10 to 50 different components that they're using at any one time to target.
So I've heard you say in other content sources, thinking big and starting small. Is that what you mean by that when you speak of modularizing content through smaller pieces?
I think that's just sort of a general trend that everybody should probably embody when they're starting out on any journey that seems like it will take 1,000 miles. They're still the first step. So the first thing we ever did when we tried to introduce this idea of much more automated delivery of messages was we literally sat down with Excel and just started mapping out how customers were experiencing our products. We did this all the way back at Skype as well. And we realized that there are moments that are seminal moments for people. And those were the things that we focused on first. So we didn't think about automating every moment that somebody interacted with us from the first time they downloaded and signed up all the way until the last call or last message or last note they ever sent or created. Instead, we said, what are the ones that really matter? Let's pick one of those and see if we can make that a little bit better by letting the machines figure out what message to deliver. And that takes a lot of testing. But once you get that done right, you realize, okay, now we just have to add more variables to the equation and we can build from that. And that's what I mean of don't try to do the whole thing at once. Just pick the things that matter. The 80-20 rule holds to almost everything. There are probably 20% of those interactions that comprise 80% of the value for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I like the idea of starting small. So back to thinking big and starting small, starting with a spreadsheet and mapping it out according to how the customer uses the product. And then little by little kind of building on that, right? We frequently use the old cliche, crawl, walk, run. So it feels like a version of that to me, Andrew, and that's great. So keep the story going. So as you're evolving that strategy, how do you actually produce it and deliver it at scale?
Sure. So I think then you have to start thinking about what channels are at your disposal. And global SaaS businesses like us or Skype or even other giant repositories that are out there have the incredible advantage that our product is usually our best channel as well. People spend more than 600 million hours every year inside Evernote, where that's essentially free media for us that is contextually relevant and where we can communicate with them in a very personalized way. And that is the next thing to start thinking about is how are you going to deliver these messages? We've done all this research that actually shows that it is twice as important to figure out what channel to speak to someone through as the word you say. And it's actually twice as important to figure out the perfect moment to speak to them as the perfect channel. So it's really like 8 times more important that we have the right moment than that we say the right words. And yet, as marketers, we tend to spend a lot of time copy testing, and we like to think about moment testing here. So once you have that realization that you have a free channel that you can start experimenting with, then we can start to think about plugging in the marketing tools and those decisions into the product and actually turning that product into a proper marketing channel that users inside the marketing team control with a content management system or a targeting tool instead of having to hard code those from engineering.
Interesting. Okay. Where I want to go next is to do a little bit of a deeper dive on the actual AI technology. But first, I want to pause briefly for a message from our sponsor, Frost & Sullivan. Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the 19th Annual Marketing Executive Mind Exchange event, Marketing Impact 2025. We'll be moderating a think tank discussion that's focused on creating a consistent omni-channel customer journey. I'm personally looking forward to the interactive and collaborative PowerPoint-free event to brainstorm, benchmark, and generate action plans with fellow marketing leaders across various industries. I encourage you to join us at Marketing Impact 2025, July 16th through the 18th, 2018, in Nashville, Tennessee, to mix and mingle with forward-thinking marketing executives and thought leaders. As an event partner, we're excited to extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. Just visit frost.com/MAR, that's M-A-R, and use discount code Vengreso at registration. Hey, I look forward to seeing you in Nashville. Okay, Andrew, so let's dive a little bit deeper into the whole, you've been talking about using machine learning in order to develop the right content, the right moment, the right channel. So obviously that takes technology. In order for us to do marketing at scale, it takes technology. So you want to speak to the type of technology that can enable that?
Yeah. I think the MarTech space in general has almost gone a little bit crazy. And maybe it's just because I get all the emails trying to sell me every piece of MarTech technology on the planet and people offering me like iPads for my kids if I can just spend 45 minutes with them. And I think that that has really almost created a barrier for a lot of marketers to get started with these things. But if you break it down, there are probably only like 3 to 5 types of tools that you really need to start thinking about. So one of those tools is going to be the data itself. If the data isn't in a form where you can have almost zero latency with it, that you can trigger messages based on behaviors within seconds, then you're going to struggle to get the full optimal results that you're looking for. So as much as we all love to talk about whether or not the power of, digital asset management and content and so forth, the place to really start is making sure that your data is as clean as it can be, especially if you're working with petabytes and giant repositories, because ultimately no tool is going to produce those results quickly enough, and you're going to have to take a sample and a subset out of that. So if you have a data platform that you can build off of, the second thing to start thinking about is, okay, what sort of targeting are we going to do? How do you actually make decisions on top of that data? And that's not really the sort of data visualization tools like Tableau. These are the true powerful data analytic tools that you will look to actually do the thinking. Okay, so now you've got data and you're doing thinking. The next thing you have to do is, how are you going to set things up, right? Because ultimately a human has to get involved at some point, or otherwise we're all really out of jobs. And I don't think that's really where we're headed. We want to think about technology helping humans, not replacing them.
I agree.
So now it's time to think about is it a campaign management tool? And that campaign management tool usually has to be integrated with 2 other things. One is some sort of incentive engine so that you know what types of offers you can make. This uses like pricing algorithms and whatnot to say, hey, these are the types of things that this customer would be eligible for, and it has some sort of content management system behind it. Hopefully, those two things are fully integrated and very intelligent that actually produce a piece of content for you. It's basically ready to go, modularized the way we talked about, and plug and play from there. But it's really just those pieces, right? So you've got content management, you've got an incentive tool, you've got a campaign management tool, you've got this sort of analytic thinking, and then you've got the data repository.
And the data repository is the last tool that you're referring to?
Yeah, the last one I mentioned there, but the first place to start.
Got it. So what are you seeing that's working and not working? I used to say that it's early days for AI and MarTech, but it's mid 2018. It's not quite as early as it was a year ago, right? So what are you seeing that's working and not working?
Yeah, we're all definitely getting older faster than we realized. I think the things that are going well are that people are catching on and they're not as reticent as they were before to start experimenting with this stuff. I think that is really opening up different possibilities, and it's not as much of a change management issue as it was before to build a culture that we've talked about that's creatively analytic, right? The team here at Evernote, a lot of us have been together for almost 10 years from Skype to here. And now I think we all get exactly where we're headed. I think the hard things that we're maybe not doing quite as well is we tend to be optimizing individual moments rather than optimizing the system. And so you can do a successive set of A/B tests that lead you to a very different conclusion than if you run a multivariable test at one time. And I see more and more people trying to do the step-by-step through the A/B tests and ending up with these really strange journeys where if you look at it as a human, you're kind of say, how did we end up with 13 screens as a first launch experience? And yet you know that the A/B tests were actually what got you there. So I really hope that we can start to inject some of the humanity in addition to the technology to really kind of have that judgment component of, hey, are we sure we set that test up correctly? Because ultimately, the machines are only doing what we tell them to do. And until we can get them to do the right things, it's still on us to figure that out.
Right. So I've got some listeners out there that might be thinking, wow, you're pretty advanced, Andrew. It sounds like you've been doing this for a little while. So if you kind of go back in the time machine and speak to the listener who perhaps is thinking about getting started with marketing at scale using AI techniques and strategies, what advice would you give the marketer who's just thinking about getting started with this AI thinking approach?
So number one, I'm a marketing guy, so I'm marketing myself right now. So I'm trying to sound smart. But the truth is, we're all just figuring it out each day. So don't be scared. Number two is pick a place that has relatively low risk that you can learn on really quickly. So our CEO is from Canada, which means that I love to test in Canada just to pick on him and tell him that, it's not that big of a risk. It's just Canada. So we often run tests up there. One of the easiest things. We
lost all our Canadian listeners. They just dropped off. No, I'm kidding.
Well, they're also a wonderful population because they're incredibly understanding when you do something wrong too, right? So there's a lot to be said for testing in Canada. So what you can easily do is just geo-target your homepage on your website, right? And just start with that one thing and start thinking about, okay, how could we make it more personalized right now? And then ask questions of, our minds can't figure out where this person came from, but, all those third-party tools that will augment traffic data to tell me more about that person before they even get there. Well, what could they do for me? And then say, well, okay, who could make the decision about actually what we deliver, which homepage we deliver if we just now have 10 homepages instead of one? And if you kind of get started in that world, it's very repetitive actually as a process and a thinking approach to go from there all the way to the full-blown conclusion of how do I guide somebody from the first time they learn about me to the last time that they pay me. And I think if you take it in those strides, then everything just feels a little bit more bite-sized. And last but not least, don't hesitate to reach out to people. We all want to help each other, right? Marketers are some of the most generous people I've ever met that we're all looking to help each other get better.
I agree. Totally agree. Of course, that's a great plug for the Frost and Sullivan marketing event that you and I will be attending in July because we'll all be there as marketers helping each other, right? And it's all about that. So that was a great, totally unplanned plug.
Great marketers are natural.
Exactly. So can you also elaborate on the type of tools that marketers can be considering? Now, I realize that we don't necessarily want to name names, but categories, things like marketing automations and predictive analytics tools, just to kind of guide the listener on what kind of tools they should be looking at.
Yeah. So I think if you want to kind of click one level down from those five broad categories, I think the things that I would think most about would be how are you going to manage all of the different content, right? And people combine things like digital asset management with content management systems in order to create all of those, to create the almost monolithic solution to those things. The truth is, for most businesses, that's wildly unnecessary, right? I think that Evernote and Skype represent the extreme level of where you have to get to. For most companies, they can get by with really doing a lot of this stuff with some basic algorithms on top of that and maybe a little bit of consulting support to write stuff. So I wouldn't get too caught up in, do I need to go buy 5 different tools and then pay some contracting team another $1 million to integrate them, right? There's this saying out in the Valley that you always design for the extreme user, and we just happen to be the extreme user. So again, I would say think about content on those sides of things, then go out there and start thinking about some of the analytic tools that you want to investigate. And there is no great solution for everybody right now, right? All the platforms that claim they do everything, there's no way they're going to live up to those expectations. So find the one thing that matters most for you. If it is content, then go get the best content management system you can. If it's really all about you have massive amounts of data and you need to worry about that, then go get the best data and predictive analytics tools that you can. I don't think that you have to go buy them all, though. Again, optimize for the thing that is most important for your business.
Makes great sense. Love that. All right. So, Andrew, we are at the point in the podcast where I am going to run through a brief summary of what we discussed. Then I'm going to ask you if you would either fill in any holes from my summary, or if I jog your memory on a point that you want to make, feel free to make that point, and then we'll bring this episode to a wrap. We began with an introduction or a reintroduction for those that are already familiar with Evernote. You are a very established brand, technology platform that really is the easiest way for anyone to turn ideas into action, allowing people to focus on what matters most. You've got apps and products and services, and you are the CMO at Evernote, and you serve 225 million users across the globe, and you've boiled that down to a marketing budget of 2 cents per user. Love it. I've never seen it characterized that way before. And speaking of characterization, you characterize your marketing approach as being creatively analytical. And I've got that here as the marriage of big data and machine learning and AI so that you can deliver the right content at the right time to the right user in the right channel. That's a lot of rights. It sounds like you're doing it right. Boy, that was totally unplanned and a lot of rights in there. Anyway, we of course talked about doing marketing at scale using AI techniques and strategies. And you point out the obvious that, hey, we've been using AI for quite some time here through just Amazon and Google and other technologies where AI is just delivering information to us. So as marketers, we want to identify what kind of messages we should be delivering. And when it's large numbers of people, like in your world, we've got to use machine learning technology to ask the questions for us. We need to be able to develop a repository of content, and that content should be made up of components that can be modularized through tools so that they can be easily accessed and delivered to, again, the right person, the right moment, the right time, the right channel. You told a story that you started with Excel to map out how your customers use your product, and you really started with the moments that really matter, and then eventually just added more variables so that you could determine which channels to use. You found that the product is actually the best channel to deliver the content because you can communicate with customers in a format that really allows you to determine both the efficacy of the channel and also the right moment, not just the right words. And then we talked a little bit about the availability of AI technology. You mentioned that the whole MarTech space has gone crazy. Well, only 7,000 plus vendors out there. No wonder they're all knocking on our doors. So, but it really kind of comes down to 3 to 5 types of technology platforms. There's a data platform, there's the analytics platform, and then there's setting it up for campaign management. And then we talked about what's working and what's not working. And you said that, it's really about building this creatively analytic culture so you can optimize the system rather than optimizing individual moments to get more efficiency. So using, multivariate elements, again, rather than just that one individual moment. And then, of course, throwing in good old-fashioned human sanity checks and asking questions like you said, why do we have 13 screens up here right now? Even though that's what we asked the machine to do, that doesn't make any sense. So that human sanity check is an imperative. And then we talked about what's working. You said, hey, a lot of us are still figuring this out. Start with something that's low risk. Do something like geo-targeting on your homepage. Make it more personalized. Use tools to learn more about the people who are visiting and even get help from your peers in the marketing industry. And then we closed up with the category of tools that are available out there. There's content management systems and digital asset management tools and analytical tools and predictive analytics tools, and how you make the point, Andrew, and I really agree with you, that most marketers don't need to go out and spend a big budget on some kind of AI technology. Prioritize according to your specific needs. Start with a very basic algorithm, maybe a little consulting, and use tools that are readily available, and then build on that over time as your marketing programs evolve. So that's my summary. What would you like to either fill in any holes or elaborate on any points that I covered?
I think the only thing I'd say that we didn't really talk about would be the nature of a team that is creatively analytic. It's incredibly unrealistic, I think, to expect that somebody has both sides of their brain fully optimized for this. And so if you were talking to our incredibly talented brand people or our executive creative director, they would talk all about the aspects of storytelling that are still very core to what marketing is. You just happen to be talking to the nerdy data guy right now. And somehow the key to that whole culture is bringing it together so that both sides really respect each other and realize that when you put them together, they're so much more powerful than any one standing by itself. And that's where I think the magic really happens. But in the end, it's really all about those people who can bring it to life.
Excellent point. I'm glad that you added that point because it is a mix of people. That's why it's called team, right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew, where would you like to send my listener to connect with you and learn more about what you've got going on at Evernote?
If I can ever be of help to people as they're getting started in their journey, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think everybody can find me there. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Evermalk. Or, of course, we actually write a lot of this content up on the Evernote blog as well.
And of course, my listener knows that all three of those will be linked up in our show notes page. So, Andrew, thank you so much for joining me here today on the Social Business Engine podcast. And I look forward to seeing you in Nashville in July at the Frost & Sullivan Marketing Impact 2025 event.
Me too, Bernie. Thanks so much.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Andrew Malcolm, Chief Marketing Officer at Evernote. This has been episode 210. Titled, The Future is Now with Artificial Intelligence for Marketing. My one big takeaway from my conversation with Andrew is this. I love how he practices creative analytics by marrying big data with machine learning and artificial intelligence in order to deliver content at the right time in the right channel, which is 2 times more important than the right words. Did you catch that? It's 2 times more important than the right words. And I have to admit, I sweat the words. And now I know that I should sweat the words less than I should sweat the right time and the right channel. So, hey, what's your takeaway from my conversation with Andrew Malcolm? Just visit the podcast section at Vengreso.com, find episode 210, and let me know what's your takeaway. And I'll have links there to everything that we discussed. Hey, I want to remind you that the Social Business Engine podcast is available pretty much anywhere you can listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, yada, yada, yada. It's everywhere. Now, I want you to subscribe using your favorite podcast player. So whichever one of those yada, yada locations you use, you can listen to this podcast on a weekly basis because we publish every Wednesday. Now, hey, I want to let you know or remind you that this episode is sponsored by Frost & Sullivan. Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the 19th annual Marketing Executive Mind Exchange event called Marketing Impact 2025. We're going to be moderating a think tank discussion that's focused on creating a consistent omni-channel customer journey. So join us at the Marketing Impact 2025 event, July 16th through the 18th, 2018 in Nashville, Tennessee, where you can mix and mingle with forward-thinking marketing executives and thought leaders. Now, as an event partner, we're excited to extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. Just visit frost.com/MAR, M-A-R, and use discount code Vengreso at registration. And I look forward to seeing you in Nashville. And remember, that link, that URL I just mentioned, is linked up at Vengreso.com @socialbusinessengine.com/podcast. And hey, while you're there on our website, be sure to get subscribed to the Social Business Engine podcast so it's delivered to your inbox each and every week. And if you are in sales or you know someone in sales, be sure to subscribe to my partner's podcast, Selling with Social, hosted by Vengreso's CEO, Mario Martinez Jr. Well, hey, that is a wrap for episode 210. I want to thank my guest once again, Andrew Malcolm, Chief Marketing Officer at Evernote. This is Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, signing off for now and wishing you continued success on your social business journey.
Thank you for listening to the Social Business Engine podcast. Be sure to tune in again next week to reconnect with Bernie Borges for more insights, inspiration, and practical advice on social business. Visit socialbusinessengine.com to catch even more content on social strategy that will rock your business and your career.